what this looks like 65 years from now, right?
When
Is
it's
a
unchecked.
president of the United States, right? Who then says, give me an airplane and, who knows, maybe I'll release the export controls on semiconductors or on advanced computer chips so that you can, make whatever you want to make in your country. Maybe I won't, right? That's the thing with Trump. You better get whatever you want from Trump, you better get it up front.
Jamal, I have had the privilege of flying Qatar Airways. It is phenomenal. It is
Fancy
beautiful.
pants.
I got to sleep in that cabin that unfolds into a full bed and they just bring you food all day. It was amazing. But what it was not was it was not public service, right? I did it on my own dime, on my own time. And I'm fascinated by this idea that Qatar Airways is going to gift an airplane to Trump, not just the president of the United States, but to Trump specifically, so that he can use that instead of the highly secure Air Force One.
Yeah, any of us who've ever been in any kind of business deal, right? Like, or any kind of like professional situation, people hand you trinkets of things like, you go to an interview, maybe they give you a T-shirt or a coffee mug. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. Right. You go to a dinner party and maybe people give you like, you go to your kids with you go to a birthday party and they give you a little gift bag afterwards with a bunch of stuff from the dollar store that you're never going to use in like 3 days. But, your kids are happy to play with like gumball machines or whatever for a few days. This is different. This is just a huge multi-million-dollar jet that a government that we have all sorts of issues with, just deals. I mean, some of the stuff is good, some of it's not so great. We got all sorts of issues with, and I just want to give the president of the United States a 787 airplane.
Mm-hmm. And he wants to take it. This is the thing. The president of the United States right now is not saying, guys, our domestic plane industry really needs to be able to build the next Air Force One, not only financially, but also to show off to the world. And then also because they can make it highly secure. In fact, Boeing is delaying the development of it because they have to retrofit and figure out how to make it possible for the president and all of the security to function in the air. And instead of that, Trump is like, oh, great. Qatar, the place where they, also sometimes host Hamas and other terrorist organizations for negotiations because they're kind of friends with them and kind of friends with us. We'll take their airplane. I'm going to ride that fancy airplane instead.
And they're friends with China and all sorts of countries, which is fine. Every country has a right to be friends with whoever they want. But we have to realize that perhaps these countries are not just operating in U.S. best interests, right? They're doing this for their own best interest. And you think they're just giving away airplanes because they don't have anything else to do? And like you said, it's not just a gift to the United States Defense Department, which is how President Trump is positioning it. It also then will go to him at the end of his term, and it will go to his library and museum board or whatever it is. And do you think he's just going to take it and stick it in a museum and nobody will ever see it? No, he's going to still fly that sucker. He is going to be on that airplane for the rest of his natural life. How do we know? Because that Trump jet that he has right now, he's had for like 35 years. It's like the oldest plane still flying because he can't afford to get a new one.
So there you go. That solves that problem. Trump has now figured out how to use the presidency to make sure he has a private plane for life.
For the rest of his life. That's what it's all about. Because this is the part that we're all wrestling with, and we keep dancing around it, and we're trying to figure out what's good and what's bad about this. But we have a president who doesn't seem to have any kind of ethical, moral standing, any moorings that make us believe that this person is in the game for us, or is he just in the game for himself?
Are we dancing around it? I mean, there are plenty of people who've been calling it out for years. The question is, how many people actually care? Right? Like, enough people didn't care about the convictions, about the bankruptcies, about the assaults, about any of the racist things he said or did in his first term or over the course of the 4 years that he was out of office, that they voted for him again. Right?
Yes.
What I find interesting now is how far Trump supporters have gone to now say things like the Constitution don't matter. Right? The Constitution is a set of rules and values that we have all agreed we give up a little bit so that we gain something as a society, right? It is a secular set of ethics and rules. And
absolutely.
They openly say now, Trump supporters openly say, no, we just want a really strong executive. We don't care about constitutional powers. Trump himself said he doesn't care if he actually has to abide by the Constitution or not. He'll see how he feels about decisions that come out of the court. So, like, what are you supposed to do then when this set of rules and norms or ethics, a whole group of people say they just don't care. They just want to do what's best for them.
They don't care. And the demonization of others. I mean, we talked about this before, but I was on with a Republican consultant recently on television who was saying, well, we can do whatever we want to these migrants. If we deport the migrants, I don't think we should be standing up and fighting for people who are here illegally and they're gang members and they're bad and they're terrorists. It's like, well, MAGA might one day be looked at as a terrorist organization because they did storm the United States Capitol and attack law enforcement officers. They might be seen as a violent gang. Do we want everybody whoever wore a red MAGA cap to now be a suspect in the conspiracy of MAGA and what they did in the country during a certain time period of politics? I don't think that we do. I don't think the Republicans do. I don't want to have a country that works like that. But that
Yeah, but
is
see,
the end result. That's the end result of shading these rights for people who we don't like. Sooner or later, they're going to come around and bite us in the ass for people that we do like.
well, there's a lot of F around and find out right now from people who voted for Trump and now their child or their spouse is about to get deported. There's this wonderful
Yeah.
lawyer out in Texas who's doing the Lord's work, not only dressed entirely in pink, but also she's an immigration lawyer, and she was online and sharing a message about a friend in Dallas saying, "Hey, could you pro bono figure out a green card for my nanny? Thanks. We need to catch up sometime." Right? It's this is impacting people, but I still don't think that idea of, oh, this could happen to MAGA people one day, that necessarily is going to break through, because the whole point is that this group of people feels like what happens to them right now, what they can get away with right now, is more important than what may happen to somebody else down the line. And there's plenty of lefties who think that too. What I
They
want
do.
right now is most important. What happens 20 years from now doesn't matter anymore. Good luck if we even get there to 20 years from now.
I was listening to Stan Crystal, the former general, talk about the book that he wrote about character that just came out. And I was thinking about that in the context of this president, because you and I are both raising separately these young kids, right? Like in our families, we have these households, these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I don't particularly let them watch the news is on a lot. The images are there. They stop and they look at them. My son, however, had to give me a full rundown on Elon Musk yesterday in a way that I was not prepared for him to know about. But he really knew a lot about Elon Musk. So I guess they're talking about this even at school. But the question is, how do you raise kids in an environment where the person who's the leader of the country, the leader of the free world, is somebody who is just so morally odorous? And I think even if you make the argument that you like his politics, you think what he's up to is right, he personally just does not evidence any of the qualities that I think most of us would like to see our children have in their lives. And so how do we do that?
So I don't know that it's most of us want that. I have seen plenty of parents in my neighborhood and at my kids' school who are only about taking care of their kid and themselves, and that's it. They don't care what happens to anybody else. And in fact, they will step on their kids' friends in order to make sure that their kid gets ahead or whatever the issue is. And they will never acknowledge their kid does anything wrong. Right. And I see that
Yeah.
extending out into how then these people go out into the workplace and how they operate otherwise. I get what you're saying, though, about broadly this desire for fair leadership, of, or at least being able to show that leaders are people you can look up to
Admire in just
versus,
some way.
yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, my kid's 8 years old and he understands that, yeah, enough people voted for a guy who's kind of a jerk, and you need to show up next time, right? Or you need to be able to do something, and we just have to figure out how to get through, because the only way through is through. That's it.
Yeah.
The only way
Yeah.
through is through. That's the lesson he's getting, which I think that lesson of resilience is really important. What I have had to navigate earlier than I thought, which is probably also a good thing, is the idea that when you have power, how are you going to treat people?
Yes.
Because I want you to think about that even when you do or don't have power. So he was made bus patrol for all of like a week.
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah.
Does he have a sash or a badge or like some sort of a
Not even. Just excited that he get to walk up and down the bus in the morning and make sure
Okay.
everybody was seated. And he goes, if I see even a hair or a finger of somebody pop up, I'm going to tell them that they're in trouble and they have to sit down. I said, really, Idris? Because when you've had bus patrol do that to you, how do you feel? He goes,
Mm-mm.
It's like, I know you want to do a good job, but a good job is also making sure that people, it's not just following the rules, it's making sure that people are okay. And would you like
Yeah.
someone to treat you that way? So these are so many easy lessons that I see coming up because of our current context and systems. But yeah, I didn't expect to have to talk about power dynamics with an 8-year-old. And I'll probably have to talk to him about corruption too. And when you have
Oh, all of it.
responsibility,
Sure.
don't take stuff from other people if it doesn't
Your
belong to
friends are
you.
smuggling you, right? They're smuggling you Kit Kats,
I will,
under the table to get, to allow them to be able to, do
but for
whatever they
real
want to do on
though,
the bus.
the older son is not the one I'm worried about. It's number 2, the daughter, because she is already running her own little girl gang in pre-K. And my
Yeah.
goal with her is just to get her to not be, she can run a transnational corporation one day. It just
Yeah.
needs to not be a drug cartel. I'd rather it be the law firm that works with the drug cartel. Like that's my best option for her right now. Just move her
Well, she
away
sounds
from.
she sounds like my friend. I have a friend who I went to high school with, who bought a car selling candy. Like, he was the candy guy in school. He had a big
Yeah.
bag, and he would go to the warehouse and, I guess, buy a bunch of candy for a nickel, and then sell it for a quarter, at school all week. And he started this because his dad, he wanted to buy a bike, and his dad said, "No, I'm not going to just pay for it. You're going to sell something. Like you're going to earn some money for this." So he was in middle school. He started selling candy in middle school. Then him and his dad split the cost of his bike. That kept growing, and then he ultimately did that for a car, and then he ultimately started a business and became a business guy.
Only with
Like,
warehouse
right?
candy, not other types of candy.
No, warehouse candy. The dude, and
Oh.
he was vicious about it. Vicious about it. You'd be like, "Hey man, let me get let me get a piece of gum. I got to go into this meeting and go into this class." He'd be like, "Okay, it's a quarter." I'm like, "Dude, I don't have a quarter. Just let me get it. I'll get it back to you." It's a quarter. He never gave anybody anything for free. And then when he started driving, because he was a little bit older, he got his first car. He would drive everybody home for $1 in gas money. Like, he'd take you home. And so me and my brother, I had a brother who was in school with us at the same time. So he's driving both of us home. And so I would try to give him $1. He's like, "No, it's $2." I was like, "What are you talking about? It's the same amount. It's like the same distance." He was like, "Nope, gas, $2."
Here's what my daughter
And
did.
I will say, he is now a fairly successful businessman in Southeast Michigan.
He just kept to his rules.
Yep.
And was transparent about what his
He
rules
was
were and what
transparent.
his business. My daughter comes home from pre-K with a stuffed toy that's not hers, and she said her friend gave it to her. I said, "Really? Oh, okay. Tell me why. Why did she give it to you?" "Well, she loves
Same reason
me."
they gave Donald Trump an airplane.
I said, "I know." I was like, "I know she loves you. I know she loves you. But what else? Like, tell me how this conversation went." She goes, "Well, I told her if she gave this to me today, I would get her an even bigger puppy and a puppy baby tomorrow." So she promised some imaginary stuffed toys that she doesn't know where she's going to get. She can't afford because she don't got the money for it. And the girl bought the idea, and then gave away her own toy. So my daughter's walking around with some other kid's toy for the whole day and the whole evening. And of course, I made her give it back. But like, that's who she is. She's like, if I hoodwinked you, I have a story about it. That's fine. This is my story. And I promised you something that I have no intention or plan of how I would deliver that. This is why I'm worried about her, because yes,
So
she
she's
could
got
be
good parents, right? She's got good parents who are monitoring this, who are intervening, right? Who are steering this into the right direction. What this looks like 65 years from now, right?
when
Is
it's
a president
unchecked.
of the United States,
Yeah.
right? Who then says, "Give me an airplane, and who knows? Maybe I'll release the export controls on semiconductors or on advanced computer chips, so that you can, make whatever you want to make in your country. Maybe I won't." Right, that's the thing with Trump. You better get whatever you want from Trump. You better get it up front. I'm not convinced he ever does anything
Oh, well,
that he
and the whole
promises.
deal making thing, right? Let's talk about China for a second, where he already hiked up prices so much with the tariffs, and then said he's gonna have a negotiation with China, and they were gonna give us something in exchange for lowering tariffs. No, got nothing.
Yeah,
They got nothing. The U.S. got nothing from the deal. In fact,
and we just
China.
reduced everything back to where, well, actually, a little bit better, a little bit worse than where it was before,
Yes,
right? We
exactly.
got
He
nothing,
he
right?
he reduced tariffs to what he'd already raised them to in January. So the problem that he created in January is back where we are, except China has given up nothing.
Yeah,
What kind of negotiating is that?
I'm going to create a problem, and then it's going to get bigger, and then I'm going to solve the problem by going back to where we were before and tell everybody that's how you cut a deal. It's just ridiculous, So on this character thing, I just want to finish up this before we move on, because I was raised and went to college at a place, went to Morehouse College, And there are all these things, right, that are like written on the walls when you go to college, or like they're in these books. And one of the things that I remember, I think it was Benjamin Elijah Mays, who was one of the early presidents of Morehouse, and he said something like, "It's easy to train a man's mind, but you've got to train his heart and his
Mm.
soul. If you don't train his heart and his soul, you can create like I'm messing up the quote, but you can basically create a great mind that can do wonderful things, or you can create like a disaster that will do horrible things. But the worst thing to do is train a man's mind to not train his spirit, his soul."
Mhm.
And I just think, we've got all these kids in this country who are looking up, and they see somebody who was able to be super successful because he lies, he cheats, he tells people things that aren't true, he abuses women, he goes bankrupt and gets bailed out by his dad, and like all these things, all the things that you don't want. And anyway, I just think I think as a country we have to decide who we are, what we want to be, because I think who we are is becoming evident. We are a lot of things, not all of them are good. What do we want to be? And then those of us who care, we've got to find ways to highlight the good stuff, because the bad stuff seems to be winning too much lately, and it's depressing the hell out of me.
Oh, well, this next topic probably isn't going to make you any happier. I know it's
Hmm.
probably going to rile you up, which is why I'm bringing it up, because I do like to see you get a little activated and the yeah, but instead of both of us being depressed, um, when you get to the idea of who do we want to be as a
Yeah.
country, I think Trump's made it very clear with him and Elon Musk and his other billionaire friends, and this whole idea of changing the face of our country by deporting people who are working in the United States because of their legal status, deport them violently at times. We have seen violent videos of unmasked, rather, unidentified people in military gear grabbing people off the street and separating them from their children. This is video from Massachusetts. So, like, in multiple places, like, who are these guys pretending, cosplaying to be military commandos? Like, dude, you're Border Patrol or ICE. Like, chill out for a second. And you're coming up
Yeah, and
against
then
a
we find
mom
out
with
they're
a
like
baby.
secret police. We find out that Homeland Security has a secret police force. I just read the story the other day, and a lot of these people are in the Homeland Security secret police force. They're going around rounding people up. We don't even know who they are, who they report to. Anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead,
like,
finish your
whatever
story.
happened to identify yourself as law enforcement? But sure, that's what's
Yeah.
happening right now. And at the same time, the Trump administration has decided that they're shutting down refugees from every other country except white Afrikaners from South Africa. Forget about
Because they're
famine,
being
forget
discriminated
about
against.
genocide, forget about war-torn countries, political rights, all of those other things that are happening in other countries, because white Afrikaners, the white people in South Africa, do not have the same quote unquote rights they had under apartheid. Therefore, they're oppressed. And therefore, they need to come here. I'm like, oh, tell me, these people who had so much power in apartheid, what kind of system would they be creating in the United States now? Huh.
Yeah, and let me just give you one little factoid, because I looked this up this morning. And so Donald Trump is saying he's doing this because people are being killed and discriminated against. So the South African police have released some stats from April 2020 to March 2024. 225 people have been killed on farms, because these people that he's going after, he said these are like farmers who have been oppressed. So 225 people have been killed on farms. Here's the problem: 101 of those people are black. Of the people who've been killed on farms, and they're either current or former farm workers.
Mm-hmm.
Only 53 of that 225 are white. So
But
we
save
are
the white
not
people, right? Save those poor white
not
people.
going after the black people who apparently are being killed. We're
Mm-mm.
only going to let in the 53, the white folks who are, and apparently there are 8,000 Afrikaners who are interested in participating in this program.
It sounds like actually South Africa has a farm security problem, period. Not
Right, exactly.
right, not a racism against white Afrikaners problem. But the idea that they lost the ability to run other people's lives and make them into second class citizens and only allow them to be servants, right?
Yeah.
That's the power they want back. That's the loss. Like, they were oppressed because they lost the ability to do that, and they want that back. And they think that the United States can give that to them.
So let me tell you, I was in South Africa once, just for a minute. So I was on my way to
Mm-hmm.
Namibia. This was in the
As one does.
1990s. Exactly. This was in the 1990s. And I had to do a transfer in the South African airport. This thing called Jan Smuts Airport. And so I land whenever. I'm super excited because I'd never been to Africa before. And this is like the last person in my family who was in Africa left in chains to be a slave. And now I'm back. So I felt like, oh, this is great. So, but I go in to buy postcards. And there's this woman in there, an older white woman in there, like older, like probably in her mid to late 60s at least. And I go in there to buy these postcards, and I'm just talking to whoever I'm with. I'm not paying attention, and I hand her the postcards, and she says, "Oh, that'll be however many rand." And so then I get the money, and I go to hand her the money, and she's just like, "No," she's like, "Put it down on the table." And so I put the money down on the table, still not paying attention. And then I put my hand out for the change, and she puts the change on the table.
She won't touch you.
And then I realized she didn't want to touch me. I was like, and that's the reason why Nelson Mandela is president and you're going to lose your job. I went into the whole tirade in the middle of the thing. But, these are the people that he wants to protect, are the people who basically it's like going to the American South and saying all the people who had to have their school integrated and they were outside yelling at school children who were integrating University of Alabama or Little Rock, whatever school. It's like saying, you guys have been oppressed because you lost your white supremacy. And so now we're going to give you reparations, right? We're going to do something for the people who lost their white supremacy. I mean,
that has been done in history before. Haiti, when the first country to claim independence from colonial powers in the Western Hemisphere, to get rid of the shackles of slavery, first country to do that, was forced by the United States to pay reparations to France for France's lost economic value, because France could no longer have enslaved people and sugarcane. And in order to not be bombarded by the U.S. military, that's what Haiti had to pay reparations. And that's why they started off in extreme poverty and are still on that trajectory today, because they had to pay reparations to colonizers.
Yeah. And there have been proposals in the U.S. Also after slavery to compensate people for the loss of their property, which ultimately the Civil War kind of eradicated those ideas. But that was one of the original ideas. And so, we are denying refugee status to people who come from Central American, South American countries who are clearly being attacked, taken advantage of, raped, children, abducted, all the things, right? They go through the Darien Gap to get here. They go through this great journey to get to the edge of America so they can have freedom.
Farms in Central America are also dangerous. Farmers have security issues there too. There are farmers dying in Central America because of gang violence. So same story, not the right color, not the right color.
So all right, so then let's take it back to where this is, which is that means that if we are denying refugee status to Venezuelans and people from other parts of South America who are obviously refugees, many of them, we're denying them refugee status. We're sending people back to Cuba and Haiti and all these other places, getting rid of TPS, temporary protected status. But we're going to let in white South Africans, Afrikaners, who had been oppressing people for generations, and now they are feeling under some duress because there's like legitimate land reform issue that's on the case, because most of the land in South Africa is owned by white people, and they got it illegitimately, and they have most of the jobs. And so now, as they're trying to integrate and figure out what to do with the land to create more economic opportunity, they're taking some of this land, the government, and then figuring out what to do with it. Okay, fine. But we're going to get on the side of the Afrikaners. Who are these? I mean, well, we know who these people are, right? We know who they are. And let's not forget, Elon Musk is from South Africa, or at least lived there for some period. Like, they are not on the side. They are not on the side of creating America where, everybody like us gets to participate. They're being very obvious about it. White
very straightforward
is their god.
Elon Musk's daddy made his millions from emerald mines in South Africa. Who do you think worked those mines in deplorable conditions? But locals, indigenous people, so that Elon Musk and his family could make the money that now was used to fund his other ventures. That's
yes. Oh, and there's one more category that we're denying. There are all these people who are in Afghanistan, right? I'm telling you about this. There are all these people in Afghanistan who helped American forces when American forces were there, who are now, who became under attack and suspicion by the Taliban, and we are not letting them in the
Yeah.
country. They saved
Oh,
American lives.
they and they are vouched for. They are vouched for by U.S. soldiers and U.S. military. Like they have
Yes.
people who say, "No, this was my interpreter. This was the person who worked with me in this unit. This is." They have all of that record of for these people, and they're now
This person
also
saved my life. Literally, they were like, this person saved my life in a battle. And now I can't do anything to save him
and
or her.
they are now for the people who are here who did come in on that special immigrant visa, SIV visa. The Trump administration has said, we're lifting the protection order. They are no longer protected from deportation. So they could make it here, and many made it here in the Biden administration and have been, integrating into American society. And they're just going to randomly decide, because ICE needs to make its numbers, to rip them out and send them back to the Taliban.
No Central Americans, no Afghans,
Mm-hmm.
no Haitians, no brown Cubans, but white South Afrikaners. Those are the people America is on sides with right now.
Yep.
Like that's where we are,
Yes.
right? We are
Very
siding
literally
against Ukraine and NATO allies in Europe, and slow
Mm-hmm.
walking that. We are the president of the United States is trying to pick up a jet while he's in the Middle East that he could bring back for himself from the Qatari royal family, and we are denying refugee status to brown people around the world who deserve it and giving it to white South Afrikaners who had been oppressors of the black people, who are the majority of the country, by the way, who are
Mm-hmm.
the majority in that country. This is the Trump agenda, and we should all be crazy if we think they're up to anything except what it looks like they're up to.
No, it's call a spade a spade. This is what they're doing. They want to change. They want
You
America
said
to.
spade.
Yeah. It's they're telling you, and the sad thing for me is that, especially with our travel overseas and having family overseas, is I can't say, oh no, America's not like that. This is an aberration, because this was a
Right.
choice. This was a
And we
choice
made it
by American
twice.
people. Bingo. And we knew what that choice was. And some people are claiming they didn't really believe Trump was going to do all of these things. Well, first time, shame on me. What is it? First time, shame on you.
You
Second
right.
time, shame on me. Like, this is you're right. This is what America is on the world stage. Good luck convincing anybody that this is not who we are.
So my favorite version of that is the George Bush one. And he's like,
Which is
first time,
which is what I just
first
did.
time, shame on you. Second time, shame. Don't be shaming people. Because he couldn't remember that.
I know.
Remember how it went.
I have yet to do it properly. I think I've tried it 2 or 3 times here, and I haven't done it right. So I'm just gonna drop that from my bit. So, Jamal, thanks for making me.
What I wouldn't do for a good George W. Bush in the White House right now.
Minus the Iraq War.
Minus the Iraq War for sure. But, I will always give that man credit for the days after 9/11 when he went to mosques in this country and told Americans we're all on the same side. Don't target and demonize these people. And when they were
and then he turned around. Then he turned around and did the Patriot Act and the surveillance, CIA surveillance of all the Muslims in the city, and all the things that have me growing up thinking, you know what? This is what walking around, people saying, oh, well, that gang member over there or that terrorist, or them, like, oh, I've always grown up thinking how quickly somebody can turn around because of my family's Muslim identity and throw the terrorist label at me to then get thrown in jail. Like, that's just a reality, right? So, yeah, but I do know what you mean in the sense of that he wasn't as openly corrupt and openly self-serving as Trump.
And what I would say about that is he's the president, so he deserves all the blame and he deserves all the responsibility. I will also say that was the era of the ascendant Dick Cheney, and for me, I think that was Dick Cheney's politics that George Bush got roped into, because every piece of evidence about George Bush as the man is that he actually respects people who are different, even though they may have different ideas than me, from Condi Rice to Alberto Gonzalez to whatever, all these people who worked for him. But again, he signed off on some pretty horrible shit, and so he gets to have the historical stain for it.
We don't need to. We don't need to.
At least he was the man. Was like, can we at least be nice to Americans? Like, at least he wanted to try to figure out.
Can't give you that one, Jamal.
Like,
I can't give you that one. Yeah, no. My friend as an intern was kicked out of a White House meeting because he was Muslim. Like, this is like, like your idea of like, oh, it's an internship. This is so exciting. Let me do this. And they're like, Bush is like, no, we can't. Who's this kid? Like, no. We don't know. We don't know who his parents are. Out of here. Get him out of here. His parents might be terrorists. So,
Yeah, one day
Mm.
I'll tell you about the country I went to where they questioned me for a long time about my name being Jamal and where my family was from and whether or not I was lying about the fact that we were from Detroit.
I mean, Detroit named in the
I was like, it was
1970s and
Detroit. It was the
80s.
70s.
Like, do you guys nope, you don't know American history. Okay, got it. Got it.
I was
Yep.
like, Barack
Yep.
Obama was president of the United States. Why are you questioning me about
Oh
my
no,
name?
even
Get out
better.
of here.
Barack Hussein Obama. Love
Hussein
that part.
Obama.
I love that part. Barack Hussein Obama. I just you just put it in
No.
America's face like that. I know. Well, thank you for making me laugh today.
Yeah, let's end this on a good part. Look, we got work to do. We got character building to do. At some point, we're going to have some sort of an ethical plan for this place that doesn't involve people just paying for what they want for the government. This cash and carry government that seems like we are
Mm-hmm.
all marching steadily toward. But, this is what we signed up for. They're going to tear the shit down, and we got to figure out what we want to build after it.
Build it back up.
Or build something new. Because that might really be the thing. It's like
Yeah.
this is like one of those HGTV shows. It's not a rehab job. We are tearing this MF down, and now
Yep.
we're gonna figure out how to like take the flooring and turning it into a very nice mantelpiece for the take all the old wood and turn it into like some nice feature items for the new house that we're gonna build. But we got to build some new stuff.
Build new stuff. Thanks, Jamal.
Thank you. Have a good week.